Okay, evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James from Varsity Unlimited Tutors. We're meeting here today to do our class for economics, right? So just maybe a minute or two of introductions before I start. Okay, so I've got here first year students who are studying economics 1A, and I also have got advanced diploma students who are studying microeconomics. So these two subjects is one or more or less the same thing. However, we will have different assignments. So we just meet combined mainly for the tutorials, but for discussions to do with assignments, to do with exams and whatnot, we'll be meeting separately because your exam papers and your assignments are a bit different. But the study material is basically the same. That is why we are combining into one lecture, because what we are studying is basically the same. I'll be repeating myself if I have to do two lectures. Okay, so we want to talk about economics. That's why we are here today. We want to discuss what is economics and what is economics all about. So the first what we're going to do today is we're going to handle some information from our unit number 1 and probably a little bit of the information from unit number 2. All right. So there are 3 key topics that introduce you as the student to economics. There are key 3 topics that introduce you, the student, to economics. So the first topic is the topic of the discussion of the definition of what economics is all about. So within the discussion of the definition of economics, we are going to talk about what is called the economic problem. And within our discussion of the economic problem, we are going to introduce various economic terms that you need to understand as the student. So that's the first issue or the first major topic of economics that you need to understand. Then the second topic of economics that you need to understand is called the production possibility curve, or a production possibility frontier. So the production possibility curve or the production possibility frontier is basically the first topic, but you are now presenting it using graphs. So if you remember correctly, when I introduced you guys, I highlighted and said that economics in itself, you are going to do quite a number of theories in economics. You are also going to do calculations in economics. You are also going to do graphs in economics. So whatever information that is presented in economics is presented through 3 things. So it's either going to be theoretical information, it's going to be graphical information, or it's going to be what? Mathematical information, which is what? Which is calculations. So that is the nature of what? Of the study of economics. So it's going to be in what? In those 3 parts, right? So now that we have highlighted that economics is going to be in those 3 parts, now we want to go into the nitty-gritties of those 3 parts of what? Of economics, starting with what? Starting with the definitions. And then from the definitions, we'll move to the production possibility frontier. And then from the production possibility frontier, then we move to what? To the third part, which is now going to be what is called the circular flow of income, which is actually a bit much more broader. It's called the circular flow of income, right? We are going to talk about it, but we're not going to do all of that today because we just have 1 hour for today. So for today, we're only mainly going to focus on the first part, which is the definition and the different terms that you find within economics. In essence, we are going to talk about the economic problem and why we need to study the economic problem and how economic theory answers the economic problem. So you might already be asking, what is this problem of economics that this guy is already talking about? So the problem of economics is within the definition of economics. So for those of you who attended the class that we did on Saturday, you already know what the definition of economics is, because I think I spent about 10 or so minutes just talking about the definition of economics, right? But don't worry if you didn't attend the class on Saturday, because this is our official first class. So I'm going to start from that definition going forward. Okay, so economics is the study of human behavior. So what do I mean it is the study of human behavior? I'm saying economics is a social science, right? It's not a technical science. It is actually a social science. When we are studying economics, we are studying human behavior. We are studying what individuals decide on. We are studying about the choices that people make. So the question is, why are people making choices? Why are we studying human behavior? Now, the reason we study human behavior in economics, or the reason we study choices in economics, is because of two specific things that happen within an economy. On one end of the economy, we have got people that have got wants. And then on another end of the economy, we have got the resources that are unlimited. So I said on one end, we've got people that have got wants. So what are wants? So when we are saying people have got wants, right, we are saying that you and me, right, we have got certain desires or certain needs that we want, that we have within an economy. We are saying that the individual called Colin, right, has got a desire to have a car. He likes to have a Polo. He likes to have a BMW. He loves to have a Mercedes. Those are his wants, right? Or we are saying that a lady called Lerato has got certain wants that she has, right? Maybe she likes to have a house in Japan. Maybe she likes to have a house in the US. Right? So those are the wants that they have. Some people might want food, different types of food, right? It just depends with what you want, what you want. So those wants are what we say they are unlimited in nature, because the type of cars that I want, oh my God, I want a Bugatti, I want a Ferrari, I want all of these different types of cars, right? On top of the cars, I want the houses. On top of the houses, I want the clothes. On top of the clothes, I want the food. On top of the food, I want the computers, I want the gadgets. So the wants that I have are unlimited in nature, right? So when we do go to unit number 4, when we talk about demand and supply, we're going to separate between wants, demand, and needs. We're going to talk about what is the difference between these three things, right? For now, it's not important, but we're going to talk about it, right? So we are saying that if our wants are unlimited, will I be able to get everything that I want? I'm sure you guys already know the answer is no. You cannot get everything that you want. And if I ask why can you not get everything that you want, then the response to that is the resources are not enough. Your salary is not enough. Money is not enough. Land is not enough. Labor is not enough, right? We are saying that there is not enough resources in South Africa to supply each and every one of us of all of the different wants that we have. And that is the reason we study economics. We study economics because people have to make choices. So if you have limited resources, if you have got limited amount of money, if you have got a limited amount of a salary, you have to make a choice. You cannot buy every car that you want. You have to choose the car that you want. You cannot take every house that you want. You have to choose the house that you want. You cannot take every single piece of food that you can get, but you have to choose because you've got limited resources. Limited resources means that you have to make choices. So because you have to make choices, we as economists, we as business managers, we as policymakers within the government, we have to study how are you going to make those choices and how are we going to manage those resources in order to fulfill the choices that you have made as an individual. So that's what economics is all about. Economics is basically the study of human behavior, whereas we are looking at the relationship between scarce means which have got alternative, unlimited uses, right? We are saying that if we take land in South Africa, if we take labor in South Africa, we can produce cars, houses, clothes, laptops, phones, you know, a lot of things, but we can only produce limited because of the resources. Although we have got so many choices, we have to limit our choices. So economics is the study of human behavior in relation to how do we make our choices where there is scarcity. Scarcity just basically means limited resources. Where there is scarcity, how do we make our choices? So having talked about that, I'm sure you can already have a guess of what the economic problem is, what is going to be. But for now, let's not talk about the economic problem. We'll come back to it. Now, I've given you a broad perspective of what economics is all about. The second question that you have to ask yourself, so is economics one single thing that I am studying? No, economics is actually two things. So there's what we call microeconomics and there's what we call macroeconomics. So this semester, we are going to be talking about microeconomics, right? Then some of you, not all of you, some of you Next semester, we'll talk about macroeconomics. So this semester, we are focusing on microeconomics. So what is microeconomics and how is it different from macroeconomics? So when we are talking about microeconomics, right, we are singling it out and we are highlighting that microeconomics is the study of the units within economics. It is the study of the decisions that are being made by individuals, right, by one single household, by one single worker, by one single business, right? We are looking at individual level decision making, right? We are asking ourselves, this business, is it going to increase its price or is it going to reduce its price? This worker, is they going to take the job or they're not going to take the job? This household, are they going to buy the bread or they are not going to buy the bread? So we are looking at theory from an individual point of view. So you will notice, if you are looking in your textbook, right, you'll notice headings or units where they'll say this chapter is about consumer theory or consumer behavior. This chapter is called theory of the firm or market structures. So consumer behavior, we're basically saying we are studying the household, the individual. Theory of the firm, we're basically saying we are studying the business, the company itself. So we are studying each individual unit or each individual decision-making unit in economics. So that is microeconomics. But whereas when we look at macroeconomics, we are now looking at the broader perspective of economics. We are now looking at economics from a holistic point of view. We are looking at the whole economy of South Africa, and we're asking ourselves, has the economy of South Africa increased? Has it improved over time? Or has the economy of South Africa declined over time? We are looking at the unemployment rate of South Africa as a percentage. How many people are employed and how many people are unemployed in South Africa? So, for example, we are asking ourselves this. We are saying that if 20% of South Africans are unemployed, right, it means that the whole of South Africa, 20% of them are unemployed out of the 65 million. We are not looking at one specific person, whether they are going to take the job or not, but we are looking at the whole country perspective. So the same also applies to issues such as inflation, such as trade balances, and etc. They are just looking at things from a broader perspective. Now, within your study guide, there's an example that is there that can also help you understand these slight differences of what microeconomics and what macroeconomics is all about. So, for example, I usually like giving this example. If we're looking at issues of prices, when we're dealing with microeconomics, I'm talking about the price of one tomato, or the price of 1 kg of tomato, or the price of 1 ton of tomatoes. That's what I'm talking about, right, when I'm under microeconomics. But when I go to macro, I'm no longer looking at tomatoes. I'm looking at tomatoes, I'm looking at beans, I'm looking at bread, I'm looking at everything. So I'm saying the general price level of everything in South Africa, it's either going up or it's going down, right? So you can see that difference in perspective. So that difference in perspective is what defines whether you are under micro or you're under macroeconomics. So this is actually a typical assignment question where you're given a situation and you're asked to determine, is this micro or is this macroeconomics? So you need to understand, micro, we are looking at something that is myopic in nature. We're looking at something that is specific in nature. We're looking at individual household businesses, whatnot. Whereas we're looking at macro, we're looking at the broader economy level. Broader economy level. If there are 2 or 3 businesses, it's still micro. But if we're looking at all of everything, then it becomes macroeconomics, right? So the second distinction, now this one is not that important, but it's not that important. It's usually not asked in any exams, but for your benefit, we'll also talk about it. So there is also what you call a difference between what is called positive economics and what is called normative economics. Right. So when we're talking about positive economics, we're basically saying that you are looking at the facts of economics. What are the facts? What is actually happening? What are the facts? So for example, if I tell you that the unemployment rate of South Africa is 25%, that is positive economics. If I tell you that an increase in the price for bread will lead to less people buying bread, that is positive economics, right? If I tell you in economics that the theory of the consumer states that as more and more of a unit is consumed, the utility derived from the consumption of that unit is going to go down, that is positive economics. Because these are objective analysis of the situation that is on the ground, right? But when I now start talking about normative economics, I'm no longer talking about facts. Because normative has nothing to do with facts. Normative is judgments, it's recommendations, it's what I personally think is correct or is not correct. So if I say, look, I think in South Africa, inequality is too high, the government should give us money. They should make sure that anyone who earns less than 5,000 rand should get at least 1,000 rand from the government so that we are not poor. That's normative economics. Because that is a value judgment. That is a recommendation that I am making based on certain assumptions that I think about the issues of inequality, right? Or for example, if we go to the issue of unemployment, after you have told me positively, positive economics, that it's 0.5% the unemployment level, and then I come to you and say, oh, I think that the government should start building bridges, right, in South Africa so that they can employ quite a more people. You know, they should increase the public sector so that they can employ more people. That's a value judgment. That's an opinion that I have. That's a recommendation, what ought to be. So that is under normative, not positive economics. So those two distinctions are important. Microeconomics, singular, looking at specific issues. Macroeconomics, broader economics. Positive economics, factual, objective, scientific. Normative economics, value judgments, recommendations, what I think ought to be. So that gives you now just the basic definition of what economics is all about. Now, before we go deeper into some of the aspects of economics, I now want to introduce what I call economics terminology, right? Or economics terms, or things that you constantly hear me talking about if you are going to be attending the classes. So you constantly hear me talking about unlimited wants. You constantly hear me talking about demand. You constantly hear me talking about needs. You constantly hear me talking about scarcity, about opportunity cost, right? So it is important for you to understand these key terms so that you can get context into what I will be talking about. You might not necessarily get this in your study module. Remember what I promised you guys, that it's not necessary for you to read the textbooks, because I've read the textbooks and I'm going to take the information from the textbooks and present it to you in a condensed format. So some of this information will be in your textbooks and not in the study guide. All right, so let's talk about the first thing, unlimited wants, right? So like I highlighted, there are three specific units of wants, right? So I said a want is a desire. That's what a want is. You desire something, that is a want. If you desire food, that is a want. If you desire shelter, that is a want. If you desire, that is a want that you specifically have, right? So wants by their very nature are unlimited, because I would want a Ferrari. Please, let's make sure that our mics are muted. Okay. I would want a Ferrari. I would desire a Bugatti. I would desire, a Lamborghini. I would desire quite a lot of things. They're unlimited in nature. That's why people are billionaires, because they are constantly looking for more money to buy more things. So our wants are always unlimited in nature. So if your desires are unlimited, we call them wants in economics. And usually that's what we talk about the most, unlimited wants, right? So if your desires are unlimited in nature, we call them wants. But here's the interesting thing. Amongst those wants, there are things that we call needs. Needs are necessities, things that you can do without. So for example, food is a need. I need food. I cannot do without food. I need food. But under the need of food, if I then say, you know what, I want a pizza, that's no longer a need. That's now a want, because it's unlimited in nature. But food, I need food. I need to eat something, right? So needs can actually be limited to a certain extent, but wants can never be limited. The specific thing that I want will never be limited, but they are needs, which we call necessities, right? So needs are necessities. But also, there is what we call demand. There is actually a whole chapter that we will talk about demand. So there's what is called the demand. So what is demand? If you combine a want that an individual has and the ability to satisfy that want, that is called demand. So if I want a Ferrari and I have got 3 million rand in my account, then we can start talking. We can start talking. That's now demand, because I'm saying I have a want and I have the ability to what? To purchase that specific one. But if I do not have the ability, it is not demand. If I do not have the ability, it still sticks as a what? As a want at the end of the day. So done with that one. Second thing, scarcity. I've already talked about this. Scarcity simply means limited resources. There are limited resources that you have as a what? As a business, as an individual. Now, I want to talk about something here that is quite important. You see, I said limited resources. Now you might ask, what are these resources that you're talking about? So give me a second here. Let's talk about resources before I go any further. Let's talk about what resources are. Right. So you as an individual or as a business, right? In the economic process, you need to produce. That's what you need to do. You need to be producing something, right? So for you to produce, you're going to use resources, right? So for example, if you want to produce wheat, right? You want to produce bread, for example, you want to produce bread, you're going to need land to grow the wheat, right? So that's a resource, right? You're going to need capital to have the tractors, right? You need some tractors, you need some combined harvesters. So that's capital. You are going to need labor. You're going to need people on the farm that are working to produce the what? To produce the wheat, right? You're going to need an entrepreneur, someone with ideas to make this thing work, right? So those are the resources that we are talking about when we say there is scarcity in an economy. We are saying that there is a limited amount of land. We are saying that there is a limited amount of capital. We are saying that there is a limited amount of labor. We are saying that there is a limited amount of entrepreneurs within an economy. So that's what we mean when we say there is scarcity, or there are scarce resources, or there are not enough resources, or there are limitations in terms of the resources that we have as an economy. Now, if you combine these two things, unlimited ones and scarcity, you are going to make a choice, right? You are going to make a choice. So let's assume you've got land, you've got labor, you've got capital. So you can either produce wheat, or you can produce, some oranges, or you can produce, some maize meal. So there are different things that you can do, right? Some vegetables, if you want cabbages, right? But you have to make a choice. So if you choose that my farm is going to be producing wheat, you have to forego. You can no longer produce cabbages. You can no longer produce tomatoes because you have chosen to produce wheat. You're going to use the whole farm for wheat. So whenever you make a choice, there is an alternative that you have forgone. There is a trade-off that you have to what? That you have to make. So in economics, we say opportunity cost then represent the value of the next best alternative forgone. Now, this is a very tricky question that is almost 100% guaranteed will be in an exam. But don't worry, when we do practice questions, I'm going to get as many as I can about opportunity cost, and we're going to what? We're going to show you how to answer them, right? But this is a typical exam question where they will give you examples. They will tell you that farmer, etc., decided to do this and this and this, but he would have done this and this and this. So what is his opportunity cost, right? So opportunity cost is basically the value of the next best alternative forgone whenever you make a choice. So if I had the choice, so for example, I've got some money. Let's say I've got 100 rand with me, right? I've got 100 rand. So with my 100 rand, I can go to Roman's Pizza and buy a pizza, right? I can go to Stairs and buy a burger, or I can go, to Steak Knuckle and watch a movie, right? Or I can go to Edgar's and buy a what? And buy some jeans, right, with my 100 rand. I've got 4 choices that I have. But here's the interesting thing. If I take that 100 rand and go to Edgar's, maybe let's assume, it's an example, I know it's not the price. Let's assume that the jeans were 50 rand, right? And let's assume that the movie it's technical has 100 rand. And let's assume that the Stairs burger was what? Was 100 rand, right? So the jeans are 50 rand, the burger is 100 rand, the movie is 100 rand, the pizza is 80 rand. So if I end up choosing the burger, what becomes my opportunity cost? The value of the next best. It's important that best that is there is very, very important. It is not the 50 rand jeans because they were not the next best thing. They were for 50 rand. I would have gotten a bigger for 100 rand. So usually when you're looking at opportunity cost, you're looking at something that is almost similar in value. It has to be the next best alternative out of all of the choices, not just any other choice, but the next best choice that you could have made at the end of the day. So this introduces the concept in economics where we say there's no free lunch. So someone, well, why are we talking about lunch now? So for example, the reason why they say there's no free lunch in economics is we're simply saying that if you choose to say, oh, I'm going to have lunch with a friend, the friend is paying for the lunch. It's not a free lunch. You have sacrificed time because during that same lunch hour, you could have gone seen your family. During that same lunch hour, you could have watched James' video on introduction to economics. During that same lunch hour, you could have what? You could have read a textbook. You could have gained knowledge. So there is no free lunch in economics, which means that there is always an opportunity cost to all of the different little decisions that you are making at the end of the day. Right. Then lastly, on this specific slide, I want to emphasize poverty and scarcity are two different things, right? Poverty is faced by people that don't have money, but scarcity is faced by everyone. So even Bill Gates faces scarcity, right? Even Jeff Bezos faces scarcity because resources are limited. He wants to go to the moon. He wants to go to what? To Mars, but he cannot just easily do that because resources are limited. Labor, in terms of people that have got the skills to make him go to the moon, it's limited in nature. So he faces scarcity also. So regardless of whether you're a billionaire or you've got 10,000 rand in your account, it doesn't matter. We all face scarcity at the end of the day, right? So let's continue with some extra economic terms. Like I said, we just want to build up to economics so that you understand some of the aspects that we'll be talking about. So in economics, we'll be talking about goods. So most of them, you hear me use the word goods, economic goods, or free goods, or consumer goods, or intermediate goods, or productive resources, or factors of production. So what do I mean by those things? So when I say economic goods, it means both goods and services. I'm not saying something that is tangible. Even if it's not tangible, it's still a good, right, in economics, because we just use the term economic goods. So an economic good is just basically any good or service that you have to pay to obtain. So if I have to pay to buy bread, it's an economic good. If I have to pay to open a bank account, it's an economic good. If I have to pay to get a lawyer, it's an economic good. So as long as I have to pay for it, it's an economic good. And all economic goods have scarcity. They are scarce. You cannot get it freely. That is why you're actually paying for it. But also in economics, there's what is called a free good. A free good is a good that is so abundant, it's usually not scarce. So it's freely available to everyone. So for example, the air that we breathe is very abundant. So we don't say that air is scarce. So because it is abundant, you don't have to pay for it, right? So it becomes a free good. You can enjoy it freely, right? But I want you to be very careful about free goods because there are public goods and there are free goods. Those are two different things. Public goods, you can enjoy them for free, but it does not mean that you're not paying for them. So for example, in your own street, right? I'm sure you've got a street lighting, right? At home, when you're walking on your street at home, there's street lighting, there are tower lights and whatnot, right? Are you paying for those physically? No, you're not going to the municipality and say, this is my for street lighting. No, but you pay taxes and rates every month if you own a house. The money for taxes and rates is actually for the street lights. It's actually for the roads that you're using every single day. So although public goods are basically free, but they're not free. For example, the police, you enjoy police service. Huh? If someone comes and robs your house, you call the police, they come in, they investigate, they catch the thief, and you enjoy the service. Or defense forces, you know what? If someone tries to invade South Africa right now, those guys will be on the case. So, but do you go and pay them every month? Oh, this is my... No, you do not do that. But through your taxes, because you are charged income tax at the end of, on your salary, that income tax actually pays for the public. So public goods, although they look like they are free, they're actually not free because you pay for them through taxes. So that is why we don't consider them under free goods. They're actually economic goods. But usually we separate and give them the name public goods. So there's a little bit of theory about public goods, but we're not going to talk about it. But there's a little bit more theory about public goods, right? Next thing, Consumer goods. What are consumer goods? What are capital goods? So when we talk about economic goods, they can be classified into different things. They can be classified into consumer goods versus capital goods. Consumer goods are basically goods that you're consuming. Right? When I say consuming, for example, bread, you buy bread, you eat bread, and bread is finished, right? That's a consumer good. Or for example, a refrigerator or a television set. You buy a television set, you go home, you watch your television set. So you are consuming, right? Whether it's long-term or short-term doesn't matter, but you are consuming it. So it's a consumer good. Then a capital good is different. A capital good, you don't buy a capital good for its benefit, right? So for example, if you go and buy a tractor, are you buying a tractor so that you can enjoy riding a tractor? No, you buy a tractor so that you can go and do what? And create wheat, right? So a tractor becomes a capital good. It's a good that is capital in nature. It's going to produce more goods, right? Or for example, if it is a company, they don't buy laptops so that you can watch movies at the office, right? They buy laptops so that you can work and produce something at the company. So those become what? Capital goods. Or a building, an office, that's a capital good. So anything that you use to produce other things is going to be a capital good, whereas something that you consume, it's a consumer good. So there's also the issue of intermediate goods and final and finished goods. It's not important for you guys. Maybe for macroeconomics, we'll talk about it a little bit. But basically, we're saying that, for example, if you look at bread, right? The example of bread, right? Bread starts off as wheat. So wheat is actually a good, but it's an intermediate good because you don't really like wheat. You want bread. So you take the wheat and you grind it into flour. Flour is also a good, but it's an intermediate good because you don't want flour, you want bread. So the final good is the bread. That is what you're interested in. But all of these other things are just stages in production. But they are also what? They are also goods that are sold in economics at the end of the day. So those are some of the key terms that you need to understand. And then lastly, I've talked about this one. I think this will be the last one on our on our issue of the terms of the definitions, right? So the last thing is the resources, productive resources. I've already highlighted a little bit about it, but allow me to go a little bit deeper so that you have a better understanding of what this is. So we said that resources are scarce, right? We can also use the word factors of production. So they're called productive resources or economic resources, or they're also called factors of production. So when we say factors of production, we're saying that this is what is used in the production process. If you want a car, this is what you need. If you want a laptop, this is what you need. If you want wheat, this is what you need to be producing as a particular business, right? So that's productive resources. Now there are 4 of them. 2 of them are classified as primary, the other 2 are classified as secondary. So when we're saying primary factor of production, the first one is what we call land. So some textbooks use the term natural resources. Some textbooks use the term land. It's interchangeable, doesn't matter, right? You can call it land or you can call it natural resources. But in short, anything that is natural resources based is part of land. So for example, if in your production you need physical land like a farm, that is what? That is natural resources, that is land. If in your production you are going to take wildlife, right? So the kudos, the bark, whatever it is, that's part of what? That's part of land, right? Natural resources. If you're going to need trees, that's part of land, natural resources. If you're going to need wind, for example, a solar farm, that's part of land, natural resources. If you're going to need the sun, if you're going to need water, that's part of land. So that is a primary factor of production called land. And I'm sure you can already see when I was talking about limitations, it is limited in nature. If it is the sun, it's only available for maybe around 12 hours or 8 hours. I don't know how you can put it, but it's around for a specified period of time. If it's the wind, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there. If it's land, you have got borders in South Africa. You cannot go and start farming outside South Africa. They will ask you, who are you? So you have limitations, right, in terms of the natural resources that you have, right, so even gold, all of those things are part of natural resources, right? So that's number 1, primary factor of production. Number 2, primary factor of production is labor, right? So in whatever enterprise that you're going to create, right, in the production process, you're going to need people. So people come in 2 forms. So there is physical manual labor. So for example, in a farm, you need someone to physically lift things up, someone to physically drive the tractor around the what? Around the farm. So that's physical labor. That's part of the factors of production, which are primary. And there's intellectual labor, right? Intellectual labor, are you maybe your doctors, your engineers, and whatnot, those people that sit behind the computer and think things through, right? So that's again what? That's again another factor of production, which is in the form of what? In the form of labor. So whether it's physical or intellectual, it's labor, right? Those are primary factors of production. I'm going to highlight something, but wait for it. The second thing is you're going to need capital. So in economics, this is actually one of the most confusing things, right? When we say capital in economics, we mean economic capital, not financial capital, right? So financial capital is cash. 3 million rand in your bank account is financial capital. It's cash, right? That's financial capital. But when we're talking about capital economics, we are not talking about financial capital. Although financial capital is important, but we don't really talk about financial capital because you don't really use cash. Don't use cash to produce, but you use what cash can buy. So your question is, what is it that cash can buy for you, right? So if you need a tractor, anything that is man-made, you need a tractor, you need some equipment, anything that is man-made that you use in the production process becomes what? Becomes economic capital, right? Anything that is man-made in the production, it becomes economic capital. So I'm sure you can already see why we don't talk about financial capital. Because if you have money, money does not get you tractors only. Money can actually get you land. Money can actually get you labor. So it encompasses everything. So we cannot talk about money as a factor of production. Rather, we talk about the actual tractor that you need, the actual equipment that you need. So if anything is man-made, if anything is manufactured, it is considered as economic capital, right? So this is now a secondary factor of production, right? And then the last one is what we call entrepreneurial ability. Now, this one is sometimes tricky to understand, but bear with us, right? So entrepreneurial ability, we are basically just saying there is someone who has to come and take the land and take the labor and take the capital and combine it into a business. The business people. So that's what we're talking about. It's not labor because they are not contributing in terms of the physical or the intellectual part. They are contributing in terms of the risk taking. Because you will notice that entrepreneurs, sometimes they're not even in the business. They just come in and leave in the money. They take here, put this person, they put this person, they put this person there, and they're gone. And the business runs. So they are basically combining these factors of production, these three factors of production, to create a profitable business opportunity, and we call them entrepreneurs. And they're actually also a factor of production, an important factor of production, though it is secondary in nature, but they're also part of the factors of production. Now, there's something that I'm just going to highlight now. It's not important, but I'm going to highlight it just to help you out, because we're going to talk about it when we do circular flow of income. So if you have got land, what do you usually get as a reward for land? You get rentals, right? If you have got land, you are paid rentals for your land, right? If you have got labor, what do you usually get? If you've got labor, you get salary, you get a wage, right? So for land, the reward for land is always rentals, regardless whether it's livestock, it's plants, it's trees, whatever it is, it's rentals. The reward for labor is what? Is wages or salaries, right? The reward for an entrepreneur is profit, right? We'll see a way these things become important later on, but the reward for an entrepreneur is profit. And what is the reward for capital? This is where it becomes confusing. The reward for capital is what is called interest, right? That is the reward for economic capital. It doesn't make sense, but just take it in. The reward for economic capital is interest. So those are our 4 factors of production and the 4 rewards that are attached to those what? To those 4 factors of production. All right. So now we are done with our with the first part that I wanted us to do, which is basically the what? Basically the definitions of what economics is all about. Now that you understand what economics is all about, now I can talk to you about the economic problem and how for the next 12 weeks, whatever you're going to study is actually answering or is actually trying to solve the economic problem. right, is trying to solve the economic problem. But I'm sure most of you have already guessed what the economic problem is. The economic problem is about making choices. The economic problem is about scarcity. The economic problem is about budgetary constraints that are faced by individuals. We are saying that in any economy, there is limited resources. There is limited land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial skills. There is limited resources in any economy. Because there is limited resources, there is a problem. Why? Because people want everything. There is unlimited ones. So the economic problem is the mismatch between unlimited ones and limited, scarce resources. The economic problem is the mismatch between unlimited ones and limited, scarce resources. That's what the economic problem is. We are saying the economic wants exceed the economic needs at the end of the day. So the economic problem gives rise to 3 economic questions, right? These are very important exam questions. 3 economic questions that come out of the economic problem. So this is what we'll be solving for the whole semester. We're just trying to answer these 3 questions. So the first question is, what should we produce? The second question is how to produce it. The third question is for whom to produce. Now I will discuss about these 3 questions. So I said the first question is what to produce, right? That's the first question. What to produce, right? What should we produce, right? So for us to answer what to produce, oh, sorry. Okay. I wanted to go to, yeah, I'll skip these things. For us to answer the question of what to produce, right, we are basically asking ourselves is, what do people want? That's what we're asking ourselves. We're saying that we've got some land, 1 million acres of land in South Africa. We've got some capital lying around in South Africa. We've got labor, 65 million people that are willing to work, right? We've got some entrepreneurs, maybe there are like 1 million entrepreneurs in South Africa, right? But using all of these things, what should we produce? Should we produce cars or should we produce food? Should we produce buildings? Should we produce factories or should we produce cell phones, right? That's what we're asking ourselves. What should we produce? Should we produce tables or should we produce clothes? So we are basically asking ourselves, what should we produce? Where should we allocate our resources to, right? Should we allocate them towards production of consumer goods or towards production of capital goods, production of goods or production of services, production of public goods or production of free economic goods, whatever it is? We are basically asking ourselves, what should we produce? That's basically it. That's the what to produce question, right? There are certain units where we're going to be talking about that. Right? The second question is how to produce. Now that we have decided that, oh no, we want to produce laptops, right? We also want to produce clothes, and we also want to produce, some wheat. Those are the 3 things that we've decided this is what we want to produce. How are we going to produce it? So for example, the wheat, are we going to have 10 tractors, 3 people who are going to do the labor, right? Is that how we're going to do it? Or maybe we've got 1 tractor and maybe 1,000 people that are going to do the labor. So how do we combine the factors of production in order to produce? So this is now a business question. The first question was an individual question. We're asking the consumers, what do you guys want, right? And now we're asking the businesses, how are you guys going to make it? How are you guys going to combine these resources together in order for you to what? To produce? How are you going to allocate the factors of production in a way that will result in something that is efficient and effective at the end of the what? At the end of the day, right? And then the last question is now for whom to produce. For whom to produce, we are basically asking ourselves, we have decided that we want to produce wheat, right? We have produced the wheat. How are we going to distribute it? Are we going to say every South African stand in a line? And then, you get 1 ton of wheat, you get 1 ton of wheat, you get 1 ton of wheat. Or we're going to say there's wheat here, it goes for 10,000 per ton. Anyone who wants it, give us the money. If you don't have the money, go away. How are we going to distribute these resources, right? So that's the question of for whom to what, for whom to produce. Now, these 3 economic questions, they can be answered by policymakers within different nations. So the way that South Africa answers these three economic questions, and the way that Russia answers these three economic questions, the way that China, the way that Europe, the way that the US answers these three economic questions is actually different. In each country that you go to, you're going to find a different way of answering these three economic questions. Now, economists, they've studied. Now, this is from your textbook. You might not get this in your study module. It's in the textbook, right? Now, economists, they've studied various economies, and they eventually decided that there are 3 or 4 groups, types of economies that you will find in terms of answering those 3 questions. There are economies that answer the 3 questions in a traditional way, which is called the traditional economy. There are economies that answer the question in a command way, which is called command economy. There are economies that answer the question in a market or a free market way, which is called the free market economy. And there are economies that answer this question in a mixed way, which is called the mixed economy. Now, I'm sure you notice where I said extra notes. So these are now just extra notes that I'm highlighting. Because remember, like I said, I promised you guys that you don't need to read the textbook. I will read the textbook for you. I'll present it to you so that it becomes easier. With some of this stuff, pages and pages of information, which is unnecessary sometimes. All right. So briefly, for the next 2-3 minutes, I'm not going to go deep into this because it's not important. It's not too important. You need to know 1 or 2 things because of the assignments, but for the exam, it's not that important. All right. So when I say command economy, for example, I want you to think of economies such as North Korea. I want you to think of economies such as Cuba. I want you to think China is no longer command, but it still has a bit of command, but it's no longer command. So command economies, these are economies where political institution, where there is a central governing authority that decides how everything is done. So if in an economy, you'll find they will tell you that this year we are going to produce 10,000 cars. The government is the one who is saying that, not the businesses. The government is the one saying that we are going to produce 10,000 cars. And after we produce 10,000 cars, everyone over the age of 25, they are going to be. That is a command economy. We are saying that there is a central governing authority, which is deciding for you what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. So this is what you usually know as socialism or communism, right? If you ever heard those terms, socialism, communism, it detects towards command economy. So the government actually owns everything. The ownership of all of the factors of production, they're the ones that plan everything. That is what that is happening. This economy is difficult to maintain, but I think the best, North Korea and Cuba are the closest things that you get to command economies, right? The next example is the market economy. The market economy now is what you usually get when you're looking at a country like the US or Europe, right? US, countries like the UK, they are more on the command side, or Australia. I think Australia is one of the best market systems that you get. So a market system or a market economy is an economy where the government does not decide those questions. The government does not answer what to produce, how to produce, and for whom. It is decided by the businesses and the individuals. It is decided by people, by capitalism. If you ever heard the term capitalism, that is where it comes from. It's decided capitalistically. It means that people have got freedom of choice and freedom of enterprise. They can decide, I want to get into this business. I want to produce this. They can decide, I want to buy this specific product at the end of the day. So there's a lot of freedom in free market economies, right? This freedom does not mean that you can just do anything you want. Because if you produce anything that you want, if no one buys it, you go bankrupt. So you can only produce what people want. But we're saying that the government is not the one which highlights what people want. It is the people that highlight through what is called the invisible hand of the economy. Through prices and market forces, they signal to you what they have self-interest in. And because of self-interest and because of profit maximization, we are going to end up what? We are going to end up with what? With a free market economy. Someone says, are we allowed to record? Unfortunately, the recording will be done from my end, but I'll send you the video. Don't worry. I'll send the video after the class to the group. Just make sure that you're in the group. If you're not in the group, you can text me. I'll share my number after. Just make sure that you're in the group. All right. So that's the free market economy. I've given you some examples. There are advantages and disadvantages for each economy, but we're not going to talk about that because, like I said, not important. It's just important for you to understand the basics, right? Where do I want? All right. Then the last one is the mixed economy, right? So I've talked about command, I've talked about market. So if you combine the two, you have a mixed economy. So countries maybe like South Africa, that's more on the mixed side. Countries like Zimbabwe, that's more on the mixed side. Because you're looking at a country whereby there is a central authority, there is a government, which detects a lot of things which you don't want it to detect, but they do, right? But on the other end, they also allow people to make their own decisions, right? So they're saying that there is both things. People make their own decisions. People buy what they want. People produce what they want. But the government always intervenes here and there and say certain things, sometimes that are necessary, sometimes that are not necessary. It just depends on your perspective, right, at the end of the day. But that's what, that's the mixed economy, which is, it's a combination of the market and the combination of the command economy, right? Yeah, I think I've gotten to the end of what I wanted to do today. So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to an end of the introduction to economics that I wanted to give you today. Now, the next thing that we're going to study, which is in our next lecture, which will be next week for economics, that is for economics. For other modules, there are different days, but for economics, it's going to be next week on Monday, right? We are going to be talking about what is called the production possibility frontier. Now, for my friends who are doing advanced business management, this is not in your study module, but it is in your recommended textbook. So in case you might be wondering, where is he getting the what do you call it? Where is he getting the production possibility frontier? Because I don't see it in my study module. Please attend the class. Please attend that class because it's in your recommended textbook. And I've seen a couple of questions in your assignments and in your past exam about the production possibility curve. So although it might not be in your study module, it will be beneficial for you. So please do not skip the lecture because you don't see it in your study module. Please attend it. Then for the guys that are doing economics 1A, that's fine. It's part of your study module. It's not a problem. You guys should definitely attend. So next week, we're going to do the production possibility curve. Now, the production possibility curve, it's calculations and graphs. There are a bit of graphs, not a lot of calculations, maybe one or two things, but there's a lot of graphs that we're going to be talking about next week. Because that's what economics is. Economics is a theory, just like we did. But after you've done the theory, you have to present it in a graph. So everything that we talked about today, next week, we're actually going to talk about it again. But we are no longer talking about it from a theory point of view. I'm going to show you scarcity on a graph. I'm going to show you limited resources on a graph. I'm going to show you choices on a graph. I'm going to show you opportunity cost on a what? On a graph, or even calculate what is the opportunity cost here and whatnot. So I'm sure it's going to be exciting. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So that's what we'll be doing next week. We'll be doing the production possibility curve. If we finish early, then we go into circular flow of income. But I want you guys to breathe also. So we might just focus on specifically that, on the production possibility curve. That is in our next lecture. Then this lecture, the recording for this video will be sent to the WhatsApp groups. If you are not in the WhatsApp groups, please, you can give me a WhatsApp. You can WhatsApp me so that I add you to the WhatsApp. Let me just share my number over here. Let me just share my number in case you just joined, you got the link from somewhere and you're not in the WhatsApp groups. So my number is the last one, the one that says GEMS 071 3000 634. That's my number there. That's my number there. So you can join in again next week. Now I'm going to talk about a few things, and then if you've got questions, you can ask. So remember what we said, guys. The lectures that I'm currently doing in February, these are free classes. Feel free to attend. Every time I send a link, you are going to attend. Just feel free to attend. But like I said, when we get to March, right, starting at the end of February, going into March, I have got paid classes. I've already sent the information in the group for paid classes. I'll send it again as time goes on, as we go towards the month end. For those of you that are interested in making your payments, just make sure that you make your payments by the end of the month if you're interested in continuing with the classes that we are doing. So like I said, for the guys doing ADBM, we've got classes for business finance, for microeconomics, for marketing, for management principles. For the guys doing economics 1A, we've got classes for business maths, for analytical techniques, for introduction to business management. There's quite a lot of them. There's quite a lot of them, but I will be posting in the groups. So don't worry, as long as you're in the groups, you will get the information that I post in the groups. Now, are there any questions for me before we end the lecture for today? Are there any questions for me? You can chat on the chat platform. You can send something on the platform, or you can unmute yourself and ask if you've got a question. We still have got about 3 minutes. We had promised you 1 hour, so I can take a couple of questions if they are there. Are there any questions for me, or everything was clear? Someone says, can you assist with past exam papers? Yes, Lerato, I do have some past exam papers. I will try to combine everything into one place, and then I'll send through into the groups. I do have some past exam papers. I will definitely assist with that. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions for me? Okay. If there are no questions, guys, please have a wonderful evening. Or someone says, what will happen if I don't have enough cash to pay? You can pay in installments. You can do installments. I do allow installments. Just text me, we can talk. If you want to talk about payments, look, I don't have the full amount for the lessons in March, but I want to continue in March. Text me, we can talk. We can talk how to make your installments and whatnot. I don't have a problem with installments. Someone says, which book are we using? I'm using Mo, the Economics Handbook. I think I've posted in the group. I'll repost it after the class. More the Economics Handbook. I'll post it in the class if you need to read it. But like I said, if you're attending the classes, don't worry. But if you're not attending the classes, please read the textbook. But if you're attending the classes, don't worry about the textbook. Everything that I do, I'm taking it from the textbook. So I'm basically summarizing it for you. All right. Someone says, how much do you charge? For the guys doing Economics 1A, it's 800 Rand, including all of your assignments. The guys doing Advanced Diploma in Business Management, it's 750 Rand, including all of your assignments. But for ADBM, there's one assignment that we need to talk further. I've already given you more information on it, but we'll talk about it separately in our other classes for ADBM. The reason why it's 750 is a bit less because there's another assignment that we need to really talk about how to do it. But it's 800 for the guys doing Economics 1A, that is the first year students. And then for the guys doing Advanced Diploma, it's at 750. Okay. Someone says, do you have one-on-one and is the price different? For those that want one-on-one, talk to me directly. We can't discuss one-on-one on the whole group like this. It doesn't make sense. If you want one-on-one, if you really want me to talk to you and assist you with something specific, let's talk outside the group. Let's talk outside the group. Do you have my numbers? Let's talk outside the group. But preferably, I would prefer most of you come to the group class. It's easier to deal with a group of students. But if you really need the one-on-one, you're like, dude, I'm not understanding anything about this thing. You WhatsApp me or give me a call. If I don't answer, just WhatsApp, might be in a class. I'll definitely help you out. Okay, any other questions? All right, let's see. Did I miss anything here? Someone says, do you do analytical techniques? Yes, we definitely do analytical techniques. If you're in the group for economics, don't worry. I'll post you the date we are doing analytical techniques. I think it should be end of this week. We should be starting it, or it will be next week. I think on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not sure yet. I'm just finalizing on something, but definitely we do analytical techniques, calculations. I've got someone who's a genius at calculations who's going to take you through that. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Anything else? All right, I don't see any other questions coming through. So I hope everyone is happy. If you're not happy, like I said, you can text me, we can talk. But please be patient whenever you're texting. Please be patient. You see there's 60 of you in the class. So sometimes you are trying to text me, I'm talking to someone else. So please be patient. I'll always come back to you. Then some of the simple questions, post them in the group. Someone will answer it for you at the end of the day. So thank you guys for coming in. I hope you have a pleasant evening. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And then for those of you, we're going to meet again. I think on Saturday, there's business maths. If I'm not mistaken, we're going to be meeting for business maths on Saturday for those that are doing business maths. Those that are doing business finance, we're meeting on Sunday next week for business finance. So thank you guys for coming in. Hope you have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Cool.